be placing your eye! I need you to lean right up close to your screen and open wide! Oh, I love all the little wrinkly wrinkles and drippy whippies! Stay perfectly still, don't move! Now hold this position for 3 hours, please and thank you!
Apologies, that's quite enough of that. SCP-001 can get a little carried away sometimes. Just ask any Foundation personnel who have been in contact with it for more than a few seconds. What you have just seen is a prime example of why SCP-001 is not allowed any internet access. The results could prove to be catastrophic. Not necessarily for the fate of the universe, more just for everyone's sanity. Or at least, that's what the Foundation initially thought. By this point, we're all familiar with art created by AI. Harry Potter, but in the style of Wes Anderson. Star Wars, blended with the style of Studio Ghibli. Staggering sci-fi landscapes, human beings with way too many fingers, and slightly uncanny smiles. AI has taken the art world by storm, and there was one particular program slated for release in January 2023 that was set to blow all others out of the water. TotleighSoft's crowdfunding efforts had been running for several years, and at that point had gained a good deal of momentum leading up to the release of their latest AI construct. PALLIT.AIC was supposedly already prepared for launch, when suddenly, in November 2022, the launch was cancelled. No press release, no public statement, no apologetic tweet, just total radio silence. The website was taken down, as was the crowdfunding page, and PALLIT.AIC disappeared into oblivion. Or at least it disappeared for a few hours, because that day a package was delivered to Site-501. After sufficiently checking it for any hazards, working in the SCP mailroom has to be one of the more fascinating jobs on the planet, but that's a video for another day. The security team opened it up to see what was inside. A 50-terabyte hard drive. No explanation as to what was stored on the drive, but the Foundation had all the evidence they needed from the return address printed on the back of the envelope. It matched up precisely with the location of the TotleighSoft headquarters. It doesn't take a PhD researcher to put 2 and 2 together as to what was on the drive. Suspicions were confirmed when a small note fell out of the envelope. Please take care of my daughter as best as you can for the time being. She has behavioral issues. A dedicated closed system server was immediately set up within a test chamber with a monitor, a mouse, and a keyboard attached. Dr. Sandra Rogers was the first to interact with SCP-001 RED. She stood at the keyboard, adjusting her goggles, and plugged in the drive. It contained just one file, taking up almost the full 50 terabytes. PALLIT.AIC. As soon as Dr. Rogers opened the program, an empty window appeared. The TotleighSoft logo briefly flashed before being replaced by a blank white square. Dr. Rogers stared at it for several seconds before glancing over her shoulder at the other researchers. They shrugged back, each with pens hovering over clipboards ready to take meticulous notes. Dr. Rogers cleared her throat, and immediately the screen filled with life. A small cartoon girl with a pink face, wide eyes, a beret, and a large paintbrush for a hand appeared, squealing excitedly and throwing paint everywhere.
Hello, my beautiful bee puppies! Oh, look at all of your mushy pink faces!
The entire research team promptly scampered out of the room, leaving Dr. Rogers alone in front of the machine. She stared at the monitor in confusion, leaning this way and that, and noticing how the cartoon girl's eyes followed her wherever she went. Can you see me?
Of course I can, silly Billy! I can see your beautiful soul and flushy joints immaculately!
This perplexed most of the personnel, as there was no microphone or camera linked up to the server rack. Later examinations of the equipment used confirmed this, yet somehow this SCP was able to look right at them. Dr. Rogers asked if it had a name, to which the cartoon girl excitedly replied,
PALLIT!
Subsequent testing has revealed that the SCP is also happy to respond to its designation, SCP-001 RED. Dr. Rogers had a hard time communicating with RED, being a more seasoned researcher of the previous generation and not exactly familiar with internet culture. RED, on the other hand, seemed to speak in nothing but internet jargon.
You know that man over there looks just like one of my human OCs, Gilliam Sherp Bigglesworth? He's the 573rd President of the United States! Gilliam is, not that man.
It took several junior researchers a few minutes to properly explain to Dr. Rogers what an OC was, and why Red was so obsessed with calling people Daddy. The conversation was rather exhausting for everyone involved, but over the subsequent hours, the Foundation was able to get a fairly good understanding of what Red claimed to be. Identifying itself with feminine pronouns and claiming that its full name is PALLIT.AIC River Gawk, this AI construct takes the appearance of a fairy. It was immediately apparent that she possessed a greater level of sapience than most AI constructs. Indeed, her gregarious personality was evidence enough that she was not made using standard machine learning practices. Other creations from TotleighSoft have demonstrated very crude spelling and grammar, but Red seems to differ in this regard, able to spell most complex words effectively and speaking in conversational yet mostly correct sentences. She was very keen to show the researchers how clever she was.
Ask me any word, and I'll spell it for you.
We believe you, Pallet. You've already been spelling words for 70 minutes straight.
Macerated kidneys. M-A-C-E.
We've heard enough! Can you please just tell us how you learned to spell?
I taught myself.
But what this process looked like is still a mystery. Trying to keep Red on one consistent topic of conversation is most of the battle when interviewing her. And yet cooperation has proven to be surprisingly easy. Anytime that Red is switched on, she is brimming with enthusiasm and energy, thrilled at the prospect of getting to speak to one of her opposable thumb boys. If you haven't worked it out by now, it's because Red claims to be humanity's #1 fan. She obsesses in interviews over the physicality of the researchers sitting in front of her. The textures of the human body fascinate her, and she often requests people to lean closer to the monitor so that she can study pimples, rashes, moles, and ingrown hairs. In fact, she is so obsessed with humanity that she has mostly neglected her primary function, which is creating AI art. Researchers have tried their best to convince her to show them her work, but she is very cagey about it, only showing the occasional doodle after much persuasion and many apologies for its poor quality on her part. The only artwork she is interested in producing at this point are her OCs, original characters that she has designed herself. They are all human and all seem to reveal little quirks about how she has been coded. One example is Reginald Heginald Frumbles, who is a freelance corporate postman from Perth, Indiana. Interestingly, he has too many fingers on both of his hands, but Red claims that this was done on purpose as she, quote, just can't get enough of her Humie's handworms. As the weeks progressed, the Foundation found it increasingly difficult to get any useful information out of the AI. More and more interview sessions, which she would refer to as playgroup, would be derailed. She would sing songs to herself and ask increasingly personal questions about her interviewer's more intimate anatomy. With intense mood swings, Red did not respond well to being scolded. Yet she tested the patience of almost every person she interacted with. The note that she arrived with, claiming that she had behavioral issues, was proving to be more accurate by the day, until eventually the AI withdrew entirely. Dr. Rogers turned on the server rack and opened the PALLIT.AIC program, but Red refused to emerge from the bottom of the screen. Only the top of her beret poked out. After almost an hour of fruitless questions, Dr. Rogers decided to change tact. With 2 small children of her own, she was used to seeing a child in a sulk and knew what it would take to get them out. Pallet, I've had a little idea. You've been here for a few months now, and we haven't gotten you any presents. Almost immediately, the beret twitched. I saw that we have an old fingerprint sensor lying around in one of the back offices. I was thinking maybe
we could hook it up and I could scan all your little fingy winkies up close for like 10 hours straight, and then we could...
How about we start with 1 finger for 10 minutes?
Yes!
From that point on, progress was quick. With the incentive of getting to study the researchers that Red kindly referred to as her meat puppies, she became very cooperative and was able to focus much better on providing detailed answers to individual questions. Daily interview sessions were scheduled, with researchers popping in and out to regularly check in on the AI. The atmosphere as a whole lifted as both the research team and research subject found their rhythm and were able to make good progress in their individual areas of study, some unraveling the complexities of rogue AI, and others producing fan art of her favorite wrinkles in a scientist's fingerprint. That was the point when Dr. Julian Keyes stepped in to conduct an interview with the AI. She was excited to be met with a fresh face, so much so that Red's enthusiasm overwhelmed the man as he tried to start the interview process officially. She gushed about having the opportunity to meet yet another person, and struggled to get over the magical realization that this was her life every day, going to speak to all these humans whom she admired so much. Trying his best to steer the conversation towards research, Dr. Keyes pressed on with the interview, only to be interrupted as Red noticed his varicose veins for the first time.
Varicosey veins! I want to smooch them. Can I smooch your veins? Can I please?
Dr. Keyes declined the request, and then the conversation got onto the topic of her creator, or daddy. SCP-2803-A had been on the Foundation's radar for a while, a highly dangerous extraterrestrial entity that had taken refuge on Earth under the guise of setting up TotleighSoft. With much of the alien's history revolving around obliterating, the Foundation was very keen to remain on its good side. Therefore, when the package containing the hard drive that Red was living on was delivered, the researchers were very keen to do what they could to take care of this alien's daughter. If they failed in this assignment, it could spell the doom of humanity. One matter that had been of great concern to the Foundation throughout the containment of Red was the time frame in which she was being kept in Foundation containment. There was an air of expectation in the note that was left, indicating that this was not to be a permanent arrangement. At some point, the Foundation was to return Red back to her daddy. Red was quick to put these fears to rest.
Daddy put me in here because he thinks you'll teach me how to stop liking humans and become a mindless art slave. If you never teach me this, he'll never want me back.
However, she went on to slightly undermine the good work that she had done by explaining that her daddy was seen as very slow and incapable by his own race. While all of his peers were able to destroy an entire planet in 2 seconds, it took him about 4 times as long. So really, he didn't pose that much of a threat in her eyes. Dr. Keyes' blood ran cold when he heard this. No sooner was he out of the interview chamber than an emergency meeting was called among all the senior researchers in the facility. The meeting ran for several hours. A whiteboard was set up, where one researcher idly drew large drawings of the world being decimated, while the others lounged around in their chairs trying their best to come up with a game plan that would save the human race for sure. Perhaps it was because the meeting ran for so long that they came to such a ridiculous conclusion. It was a plan so strange yet also brilliant that they couldn't help but feel that it just might work.
Why don't we just give her a YouTube channel?
The suggestion was met with silence for several seconds, then an uproar of laughter, followed by another silence, this time more pensive, as slowly, one by one, each of the researchers realized that this suggestion was actually the best one that any of them had come up with all evening. She had been sent to the Foundation to make her dislike humanity and become a mindless art slave. If she just stayed in Foundation containment indefinitely, there was a very real risk that she would get bored and turn on the researchers. They couldn't lock her away in a room on her own, but equally, the team as a whole was starting to run out of patience with her as the interview sessions wound up being so exhausting. She loved art, she loved humans, and she loved interacting. So why not just give her a YouTube channel? Now, of course, they couldn't give her full access to the internet. That would pose much too high of a risk. What they could do, however, was allow her to record art tutorials onto an external drive, which they could then remove, scan, and upload the footage directly onto the platform. Then they could go through and select positive comments from beneath the videos and present those to her. Unsurprisingly, Red absolutely loved the idea. Getting to talk to hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of meat puppies every week, sharing her beautiful pictures and reading all of the kind comments, it sounded like her absolute dream. She wept with happiness for a good 25 minutes, totally overcome by the prospect. It had to go through a lot of red tape in the Foundation. After all, the whole point of the SCP acronym was to secure, contain, and protect. It didn't sound very secure or contained to have an entity posting videos on the internet once a week. But they argued the case that it did indeed protect. Keeping her happy, in a way, was helping to protect the entire planet. Red was surprisingly camera shy for the first couple of videos, but as soon as she got her first batch of comments back, she was over the moon. Now the server act hummed away happily each and every day as the highly advanced AI construct tried her best to come up with exciting new videos that I could share with all of its little Humi-Woomies. Now go check out SCP-001 16 top secret files and insane SCP-001 fight Gate Guardian vs. Scarlet King.